Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. Good. So I'd love to talk for a second about bias and all the bias that, we're learning about in the workplace and just in the world in general. Everything from gender to race to just all different kinds. And so what is actually happening in our brain and what can we do or how can we combat that from like a scientific perspective and an understanding?
Yeah. So a very simple explanation is that our world is full of data points and we try to make sense of it in a simple way, in a fast way. So we may say, oh, everybody that has my hair color or everybody has my skin color is a friend, or it's like friend or foe. Like your brain wants to know, are you safe or not safe? And so it just funneled basic, bits of information and tried to make sense of it. So thank goodness these days we have ways to assess our own bias. So what did we grow up with? I mean, there's really interesting studies that even children have bias because of the media that they see. It's not even necessarily in the family, like the messages they got in the family, but there's so many messages in school and books and media and social media, and they're absorbing this and they're making sense, like good, bad, friendly, not friendly. So, the world is gray, right? It's not like one thing bad, good. So, but the brain tries to take in information really fast as a safety precaution. So it's like the first step. So that first of all, we have to be aware of what bias is, and there's free ways to assess your own bias because we all have them. And so we have to know what they are so we know how to approach them. So number one is find find out your own biases, be able to explain it to your teams, learn about it, and have find those ways to evaluate it so your team can talk about it and figure out how to deal with it. And then so you get the knowledge, and then you have to what's your approach then when you're interviewing, when you're working with your team, how are you choosing new roles? So if you just are choosing new roles saying, I like them, like I relate to them, you might be working off one of your biases rather than facts as far as their experience or their schooling or their productivity. So knowledge matters, right? So if you once, now you assessed your own bias and you know your bias, but you keep acting with it, that's not okay, right? So you need to, number one, learn about it and figure out what yours are and then find ways to combat it because the brain is trying to simplify things and
That
it's not simple. People aren't simple, right? People are very complex. Yeah. So you can't just go with one feature of the person, and pick that feature to determine if they should have a role or not a role.
Yeah, and I think that's
Yeah.
so interesting that it's not. I mean, so often it's not conscious. Like you're doing it automatically.
Right.
You said so,
Right.
and it's your brain's job of just kind of sorting through. And now we're realizing, like, oh, hey, this is what's happening in our brain. It's not intentional, but it is happening. And so being able to then, I think self awareness is huge. Once you identify using, like you said, one of the ways to identify, then really you have to get self-aware on like even if it's not intentional, you need to really connect with yourself to realize like where it's happening, and then you're able to take that
Yeah.
and
Yeah. To use data points. Yeah. To use facts. Yeah. Rather than just a thought or you relate. Yeah. And so I guess, they say there's conscious and unconscious bias. There's two kinds. Sometimes you're well aware of your bias but you keep acting toward that. That wouldn't be a safe action at work in the workplace, right? That I'm sure that most companies are very against that, and that's not okay. So if you see people doing that at work, they either need to be, retrained on the bias or given more tools to combat their bias. Because sometimes you're well aware of your bias, sometimes no, you have to be assessed, and you weren't even aware of what you were doing.
yeah.
So yeah, so I think there's different ways to approach it, but definitely knowledge and data and having a fact sheet just when you're interviewing someone or something so that you don't fall back toward your biases
Yeah,
rather than just assumptions or the gut instinct kind of thing. So
right.
sometimes
And
that's what
realizing
the
that
brain
like
is doing.
learn this, like you can learn how to get away from your bias, which I think is huge. You can trust your brain to, it's just like learning anything, right? So that's a huge.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And these are people in the workplace, they can learn, they just have to take some time, put some time toward it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good. Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
think understanding what's really happening inside is a huge, benefit to
Yeah.
be able to take that action that's aligned and helps you move forward.
It's a
Awesome.
great place to start. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay. Stay well.